Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 4, Seattle. I used to live right down there by the Space Needle.
And after that, I was free and could finally decorate the way I'd always dreamed of and the way that, was my truest representation of who I am at being.
Okay.
And that is entirely this apartment. That's why this apartment has been such a healing space for me to fully express myself.
Okay, hard to know the depths of the control or conflict that she had with her previous partner. The more she talks, it sounds like it was controlling in general, maybe. I don't know. But she's saying that moving into this place after her breakup, maybe a long-term relationship, sounds like that he wouldn't let her decorate the way she wanted to.
I think a lot of stuff really got real for me tonight. But I don't come home to anybody. Single people have a lot of lonely nights. Like, I constantly FaceTime my friends when I eat dinner every night, just so that I can share like that, connection with somebody.
Yeah, it's good that she can recognize that, and I'm glad she does that. And it just points to a trend for all of us of isolation. It's weird how, in order for mainstream Americans, I think maybe particularly in Seattle, I don't know, that in order to have the attachments that I think we evolved to need, essentially living with people that we love and that we bond with, that we know well and trust. And living with, that can mean a lot of different things, but I think it often comes down to that. And that so many people, the only way that they can achieve that is through romantic relationships. And given our high expectations, which is fine. I mean, I have those high expectations too for myself in terms of not just finding someone that will spend the rest of their life with you, but finding like a soulmate, someone that you agree on so many issues, someone who's going to be your best friend. In a lot of societies around the world, maybe the majority, that is not the ideal. It's not the expectation. You don't marry your best friend, you marry your partner, someone that will be a teammate in having children and running a household. And of course, in mainstream America, that might also be involved. In addition to that, you have to have a best friend, like the best of all best friends. And of course, it's wonderful to seek that out. And I feel like me and my wife have achieved that. It's hard work. There's a lot of searching for that person, but it's attainable. But it does mean that it's harder to find someone, and there's a longer period of time and maybe a lot of ups and downs trying out other relationships, before you find your one. But anyway, that you would have this trend where a nice person who's vulnerable, like Chelsea, would have chronic isolation. And I think it has to do with a lot of things, but I think one of the factors is that the ideal, or sort of the path in life for mainstream Americans, is that you're always trying to get yourself into a financial situation where you can live on your own. Hopefully with a partner, maybe, but if you're not with a partner, then at least by yourself, because it's annoying to live with other people. I mean, I lived with roommates when I was in my 20s, majority of my 20s, or at least a good portion of it. And I remember being extremely annoyed. I mean, I can tell you stories about, I think I have on this series, my roommates back then annoying me pretty badly. But I also knew that once I crossed the line and lived on my own, that there probably would never be another time when I would want to live with roommates. And I wanted to have roommates for as long as possible because there was a lot of friendship, a lot of bonding, a lot of closeness with friends, but also a lot of annoyance, right? Also, another factor is that the ideal is to move out of the house. If you meet someone who's still living with their parents in their 20s, they're considered to be a loser, a failure. Parents will be ashamed that their kid still lives at home when they're 27. And of course, the rest of the world, that is like the opposite, or at least not that way. There's, I think, some health to that. People will be ridiculed. In fact, when we watch 90 Day Fiancé or something, or maybe even this show, and we find out that someone still lives with their parents, they'll be completely ridiculed. Think of someone like Colt. And certainly we can look at Colt and Debbie's relationship as having some problems. But the fact that he lives with his mom, just that alone would cause people within a certain cultural pocket, maybe mainstream America pocket, to just write off Colt as a mama's boy or as immature or a child. I'm not saying we're supposed to live with our parents. I'm just saying that we have a lot of needs. We have a lot of needs for attachment, a lot of needs for closeness, a lot of needs for bonding and support. And I think just a biological need to be near people. Since the pandemic started, me and my wife started working from home completely and haven't really gone back. So for the past 3 years, we've been home almost all the time. Prior to that, it was different. I was at the university and she was at her jobs, and we would see each other, but it would be in the evenings or on the weekends. And it's a different feeling when I'm around her and other people in my life all the time. It feels safer. It feels, case by case, it depends, of course. But I think biologically, I feel more regulated, more calm, better sleep, less stress, less worry. Use this as a jumping off point for yourself to think about, like, how can you, and it's a campaign. It's not something you can just snap your fingers and change, but notice your needs and try to really analyze and reject the notions that you've been injected with, these notions of the ideal, especially if you're a single person, that you live on your own, that you have your own place, that you can really control your own space. And certainly that's a pro to living on your own. But I think there are some quiet but very profound cons to having that kind of ideal.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
What's up?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
I feel like your anxiety is becoming my anxiety, you know? Like, I want to be very,
Welcome to
let
marriage.
it happen.
I didn't share too many details with my dad before I embarked on this.
They're expressing worry, especially she is, verbally, about meeting each other's families. And they're wondering how things are going to go. And Kwame became quiet, and I don't know if he was trying to avoid or he's trying to communicate something. It kind of looked like he was trying to communicate something. People will do that. People will shut down as a way of trying to communicate, or get quiet, or give the silent treatment. Lack eye contact as a way of trying to communicate something. It's not a functional way of communicating it because it is easy to misinterpret it or even miss it. So Chelsea picked up on it and asked, which was very healthy. She wasn't accusing him of anything. She also didn't avoid it herself. It was good to be attuned to that and react. And she says, "What's up?" And a lot of eye contact. She didn't seem upset or unsafe. And so he says, "Nothing." And we'll rewind this because this is a common, I think, dynamic in a relationship. And then she says, "Okay." I think her body language was like, "Well, it looks like something's up, but if you say nothing, then I guess I'll just take that for now." And then he quickly follows it up with what he was trying to communicate with his quietness, which is that what he's saying is, your worry is now becoming my worry, seemingly accusing her of something. I mean, she was having normal anxiety and communicating about it in a normal way. And then it seemed to trigger something in him. So I don't know, maybe he has a history of this. Of course, there's racism. I think we would be stupid not to consider that as a factor in this for Kwame, if not the only factor. That for Kwame, he could be worried and maybe even has a history of this happening where it's a concern that if I get introduced to your family, they could dislike me or judge me or accuse me or never accept me because the fact that I'm black. Now, if he thinks that she was being unreasonable, like she was focusing on the negative possibilities and that was freaking him out and that he's upset at that, okay, but it didn't sound like that. So let's rewind that and think about your own relationships where these things happen. It's a very common thing where you or your partner will exhibit kind of a quiet vibe as a way of trying to communicate something. It's often denied in the self. You know, the Kwames of the world who will do this sort of thing will say, I wasn't trying to communicate something, I was fine. But it's just so clear from the body language that something's going on. Or they'll say, well, I just didn't know what to say. And it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of different demeanors that you can have when you don't know what to say. When you're so obviously shutting down, it's definitely saying something. And I think it's helpful for individuals like that to note that, oh, yeah, I must not trust people, or I don't have a script to follow to communicate that. So I do tend to try to communicate that through silence or through looking away. And I could imagine that would be frustrating to people, and I should be more upfront about that. When I have that impulse to do that, I should, what am I feeling? How can I be more functional? Let's rewind that.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
What's up?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
I feel like your anxiety is becoming my anxiety, you know? Like, I want to be very,
Welcome to
let
marriage.
it happen.
I didn't share too many details with my dad before I embarked on this experiment.
So then it puts her on the back of her feet as well, on her heels because she's being kind of accused of something. Like, you made me anxious because of your anxiety, instead of him just saying, I guess I'm just feeling a little anxious right now. Or I'm feeling anxious and I feel like you're making it worse, or something like that. But just the way he said it wasn't horrible. But then she gets defensive, I think, and kind of shutting it down by saying, well, welcome to marriage, as if saying, deal with it, or something like that. So I think if he had approached it differently, I think she would have been more receptive given her track record.
Of us getting married in 2 weeks? I don't know. Do you know what his name is?
No. No clue.
His name is Charlie.
Oh, cool. Charles.
Charlie. Goes by Charlie.
Okay. It's my dad's name too.
Of course it is.
So he's still kind of doing it. It's getting a little much at this point. There's a kind of, I don't know what is, what's he thinking, or what he must. So he's coming across as aggravated.
What's up?
Nothing. Just a little nervous. I just want it to go well.
Yeah.
You know, my dad's been married before. I mean, for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's good. So Kwame found the inner resources, or I was reading it wrong, and he turned it around. Now he's opening up emotionally and body language wise, and asking. Maybe he's more comfortable listening to her talk about her emotions than he is talking about his own emotions. I mean, we've seen a lot of health from him. He broke down crying when he was broken up with by Micah in the pods, and he wasn't shy about crying in a very open, human manner. And he's exhibited other health as well. But I don't know. They edited this, so I can't really tell what's happening. I suspect that he has more emotion that's happening right now than he's letting on, so he's resorting to a mode of listening to her. I don't know.
He's gonna know the questions to ask.
You know why we're getting married in a couple weeks, right? So if he asks, tell him why this is different from anything else.
Yeah, I think that's indirectly, I think, referring to what he's worried about. That if your dad disapproves, then that means you're going to reject me. That hurts me. That worries me. I don't know what to do with that. And so I don't know if I don't feel safe enough to communicate that or express that. Cameras are around, who knows? And so he tries to manage it by telling her, I think, something pretty obvious to her, which is, well, you know why you want to be with me, so if your dad doesn't know, then it doesn't matter, right? And I think Chelsea is basically saying that. She was saying that she didn't know if the dad would approve. And of course, racism could absolutely be a part of this. We don't know, but you could absolutely imagine Kwame being concerned with that. And maybe there's been an overt conversation. It seems like maybe they've had another conversation about this before, and there's a history to this conversation, because the fact that this is the first time we're seeing it is, of course, not an indication it's the first time they've talked about it. But there seems to be already a history there between them about this topic.
And that's all there is to it. You just tell your truth. The more we worry, the more we just keep going down different rabbit holes of what the possibilities could be, right? The more calm we are, the more calm he'll be.
It's interesting that Kwame is, I think he's really freaking out, is my guess, because he's resorting to mild control in a way that we haven't seen from him before. He's basically telling her, don't have emotions that are rational and or don't express them. And even that perspective that he says, I don't even necessarily think that matters so much. In fact, it could backfire, that if she presents as if she doesn't care, she's super calm and isn't worried about approval from her dad, that could maybe, who knows, but that could make it seem like she doesn't care about her dad's opinion, doesn't care about dad at all, isn't planning on integrating Kwame into the family or something like that. Who knows? I bet you Chelsea, given that little bit of facial expression, I'm guessing she's picking up on something. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.